There are things about life on disability that nobody warns you about. Not the doctors, not the social workers, not even the people who love you. They tell you about the diagnosis. They tell you about the medications. They hand you paperwork and point you toward the system, but nobody sits you down and says, here's what your days are actually going to feel like. Here's what happens to your mind when your body stops cooperating. Here's what it's like to spend 95% of your life in a wheelchair, watching the world move at a speed you can no longer match. This is the video I wish someone had made for me. Every day starts the same way. You wake up, and for about 2 seconds, your brain hasn't caught up yet. For those 2 seconds, you're just a person waking up. Then reality arrives. The pain is already there before your feet, before your wheels hit the floor. The stiffness, the fatigue that slept right alongside you and woke up first. You reach for the medication before you reach for anything else. And then begins the process of getting from the bed to the chair, a transfer that most people would never think twice about. But when you don't walk, when your legs are not part of the equation, that transfer is the first battle of the day. And you haven't even left the bedroom yet. Your home becomes a maze of obstacles, doorways that are almost wide enough, countertops built for someone standing, cabinets you can't reach without asking for help, a bathroom that was never designed for a wheelchair. You adapt because you have to, not because the world made it easy. You learn which angles work for getting through the kitchen. You learn how to cook from a seated position, reaching up to a stove that's at chest height. You memorize which shelf in the refrigerator you can actually access, and which ones might as well not exist. Every room in your house is a negotiation between what you need and what the space allows, and most of the time, the space wins. Then there's the world outside your door. People don't realize how small your world gets when you're in a wheelchair full-time. Going to the grocery store isn't a quick errand, it's a logistics operation. Is the parking lot accessible? Are the aisles wide enough? Can you reach anything above the third shelf? Will someone park so close to the accessible spot that you can't open your door wide enough to get the chair out? Every trip outside the house requires planning that able-bodied people never have to think about. And after a while, the planning gets so exhausting that you start choosing not to go. That's not laziness, that's survival math. The energy it costs to leave the house has to be weighed against everything else you need that energy for. Friendships change. That's the part people don't want to say out loud, but it's true. When you can't go where everyone else goes, when you cancel plans more than you keep them, when every invitation requires the unspoken question of whether the place is even accessible, people drift. They don't mean to. Most of them aren't cruel. They just live in a world that moves forward, and you're in a chair that sometimes feels like it's standing still. The phone rings less. The invitations slow down. And eventually you realize that your social circle has shrunk to the people who are willing to come to you, because going to them stopped being possible a long time ago. The medical system becomes your second full-time job. Appointments, referrals, prescriptions that need refilling. Prior authorizations that get denied and have to be appealed. Specialists who don't talk to each other, so you become your own medical coordinator, carrying your records, repeating your history. And through all of it, you're doing this from a wheelchair, navigating medical offices that claim to be accessible but have exam tables you can't get onto, waiting rooms with chairs bolted so close together there's no space for your wheels, and reception desks built so high you're literally talking to someone's belt buckle. And then there's the system. The bureaucracy of disability is designed to make you prove over and over again that you still deserve help. Continuing disability reviews, requests for updated medical records. Forms that ask you to describe in detail what you can and cannot do, as if the answer has changed since the last time they asked. You fill out the same paperwork explaining the same condition that is never going away. 3 strokes don't unhappen. A disease that destroyed the vision in one eye doesn't reverse itself. A body that put you in a wheelchair full-time didn't suddenly decide to cooperate. But the system doesn't care about permanence. It cares about compliance. And the penalty for not keeping up with the paperwork is losing the benefits you need to survive. Nobody prepares you for the boredom. That sounds strange. You'd think being disabled means you're constantly dealing with medical emergencies and exhausting days. And some days, yes. But many days, most days, the biggest enemy is time. When you spend 95% of your day in a wheelchair and your body limits what you can do, the hours stretch. You can only watch so much television before the silence between shows feels louder than the noise. You scroll the same apps, you look out the same window. The world is happening without you. And the hardest part isn't the pain or the fatigue. It's the feeling that the clock is moving and you're not moving with it. The mental toll is the part that stays hidden. Depression is common among people with disabilities, not because disability makes you weak, but because isolation, chronic pain, lost independence, and a system that treats you like a number would wear anyone down. You grieve the life you used to have. You grieve the version of yourself that could walk through a doorway without calculating the angle. You grieve the spontaneity, the ability to just go somewhere without it being a project. And that grief doesn't follow a neat timeline. It comes in waves, sometimes years after the diagnosis, triggered by something as small as watching someone jog past your window. Nobody tells you that disability comes with a grief that doesn't have a funeral. But here's what I've learned. The disaster doesn't get to write the whole story. Yes, I'm in this chair 95% of my day. Yes, I've had 3 strokes. Yes, I see the world through 1.5 eyes. But my brain still works. My voice still carries. My ideas still matter. I found a way to create, to build something from this chair. Not in spite of the wheelchair, but from it. This channel exists because I refuse to let the worst thing that happened to me be the last thing that defines me. And if you're sitting in your own chair right now, watching this, wondering if there's anything left, I'm telling you there is. It doesn't look like what you planned, but it's still yours. I'm not going to pretend this is easy. It's not. Some days are brutal. Some days the pain wins and the fatigue wins and the isolation wins, and you just survive until tomorrow. That's okay. Surviving counts. But I refuse to believe that the only story worth telling about disability is a tragic one. There are millions of people in this country living on disability, in wheelchairs, managing chronic illness, navigating a system that was built without them in mind, and they are still here, still fighting, still figuring it out one day at a time. That's not a tragedy, that's resilience, and it deserves to be talked about honestly. If you're living with disability, chronic illness, or any condition that changed the shape of your life, Rolling Disaster was built for you. Not to sugarcoat it, not to inspire you with empty motivation, but to say the things out loud that nobody else is saying. The ugly parts, the boring parts, the parts that make you feel crazy because no one around you understands. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And your story isn't over. Subscribe to Rolling Disaster. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're in that chair right now, wondering if anybody gets it, yeah, I get it. Welcome home.